going to reward you. It is going to get your ad out there to more people, and it's going to reduce your costs. So then the next part of the pricing triangle is the estimated action rate. So Facebook is trying to work out how likely Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm Selena Knight, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, chances are you clicked on this episode because you too have been running Facebook and or Instagram ads, and you've noticed you're just not getting the results that you used to. I'm guessing that you're spending more in ad costs, and you're probably not seeing the results that you used to. Well, it's not your imagination. You are 100% right. Facebook CPM rates are absolutely skyrocketing, and they've increased by over 40%. And I'm not making this up. We actually have weekly calls direct with our Facebook expert, and he's told us that those are the numbers. We also subscribe to Facebook and Instagram training to make sure that not only to keep our skills up to date, but also because this gives us insider knowledge of what works in other agencies, both in e-commerce and in other industries, which then allows us to take that information and make better decisions when it comes to testing, when it comes to implementing campaigns, and when it comes to trying out different strategies for our clients. Because when we've been entrusted with other people's money, we need to be accountable. So all of these things combined means that we have this insider knowledge that allows us to know what's happening in the industry. And yes, Facebook costs have gone up. In fact, they have gone up over 40%. So I am going to tell you a couple of strategies that we've been trying that we've seen results with. But before I do, let's just be really clear about understanding why the price of this channel of advertising has gone up. It's pretty obvious that the circumstances we found ourselves under with COVID-19 has meant a lot of technology has been pushed forward faster. So things are getting out to market quicker. The way we buy and shop online has changed forever. And of course, there has been a huge increase in demand for e-commerce and online shopping. Now, everybody wants to open their business up to as many customers as possible. So more people want to be advertising their products on as many channels as possible. And Facebook and Instagram are just one of those channels. So with more competition every day, the marketplace becomes more expensive. It's a simple supply and demand scenario. So Facebook ads, and I'm just going to call them Facebook ads, right? Because Facebook owns the platform. So Facebook ads are sold in an auction environment. So just like you would go and bid on a house, the price is driven up by how many people want that property. It's the same on Facebook. That space in the newsfeed, that space in the right column, that space for sponsored ads inside of Marketplace, that is real estate, and Facebook owns it. So the more people who want to get their products, their ads in front of Facebook's customers, well, the price is going to go up. So there are three factors that make up how much it costs to advertise on a platform, and in this case, Facebook. First of all, it's that supply and demand, the auction scenario. So obviously, the more targeted, the more niche that you get, you're going to potentially reduce the costs. But it also means that you don't get your ads in front of as many people. So the broader you go, it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. The broader you go, the more people are likely to see your ad, but it becomes more expensive because other people want to get in front of those exact same customers. So we have the auction environment as one part of the ads pricing triangle. And then we have what Facebook calls the value. So how much value is your customer, or is Facebook's users, more importantly, they don't care that they're your customers or not, how much value is the Facebook user getting from your ad? Now, of course, Facebook knows this. This is what the algorithm does. Are people stopping the scroll to read your ad? Or are they just scrolling straight past? You're not stopping the scroll. Are they clicking? Are they watching a video? What are they doing? How are they engaging with your ad? Now, of course, the more engagement that Facebook can see, and of course, these things in the background like the dwell time. So dwell time is how long somebody... This is where your objective becomes really important, because if you choose an objective like conversions, Facebook is more likely to show your ads to somebody who has actually purchased from somebody else, from a business that is like yours. So someone who has done that end objective, that's who they want to show it up to. Whereas if you choose traffic as your objective, basically you're just looking for clicks. You just want people to go through to the website. It doesn't necessarily mean that you want them to buy. And Facebook can only do the parameters that you've set it out to do. So this is why your objective is so important. And I'm going to jump into this in a minute and some of the tests that we've been running and what's been working and what hasn't. But this is what you're paying for, right? You're paying for Facebook to work out how many people are likely to take that action. And this is really important because when you're investing in money in your advertising, you want to get the highest return that you can. And so what you really want Facebook to do is show your ads to the people who will do the thing that you've asked Facebook to get them to do. You don't want to be showing your ads if you've got a shop now button and you have optimized for conversions. You don't want Facebook to show your ads to people who have never ever bought from a Facebook ad before, because the chances of them purchasing is so low. So one part of that equation is how likely the Facebook user is to take the action that you have asked Facebook to optimize for. But the other one is your actual ad. So you'll quite often see when you start running an ad, it's in the learning phase, because Facebook has to work out how many people will actually convert of the people it's shown your ad to, how many actually took that action that you optimized the ad for. And this is why you have to let ads run. Because if you run something for 24 hours and you're only running it at, say, $10 a day, it's likely that that isn't enough budget for Facebook to have put it in front of the right people and get the conversions that they need. So you need around 50 conversions for Facebook to get a really good idea whether your ad is working or it's not. And so that can become really costly when you are running just conversion-based ads. And what I'm talking about here when conversion is getting somebody to go through checkout and purchase a product. So 50 purchases, if each one of those purchases has cost you $20, that might take you $1,000 to achieve. But if you've only spent $10, $20, $30, $50, you don't have the data that Facebook needs to then refine the algorithm and get you the people that you're desperately trying to get your ad in front of. And of course, the flip side of all of that is if people aren't taking the action, if Facebook thinks that you have a low estimated action rate, it's going to charge you more to get your ad onto their real estate. So just a quick recap of that pricing triangle. First up, we have to take into account the auction environment itself. The more people who want the real estate, the higher the price is going to be. The second part is the value that the Facebook users are going to get from seeing your ad in their newsfeed. And third is the estimated action rates. So when you put all of that together, Facebook comes out with a cost. And if your competitor has a better action rate or they have better dwell time, then the chances are they're going to be getting in front of your customers cheaper and more often. So let's jump into what we've been trying out and what's been working inside of our agency part of our business called the Retail Strategists. Now, if you haven't been inside of Ads Manager, if you're fairly new or you don't spend a lot of time inside of the platform, you're probably just doing sales-based ads. So maybe you're running dynamic product ads, maybe you're running an ad just for a specific product or for a promo or a sale that you've got. But the fact is, it takes more than one touch point for customers to buy from you. And so if you are just moving straight to that end part of the purchase, think of it when you walk into a store. You don't generally just walk in, pick up the thing that you went there for and walk out. You'll browse. If you've never been to the store before, you want to look and see what other products the store is selling. So generally speaking, going straight for a conversion ad is going to be expensive. Now, they 100% should be part of your ad strategy, but they shouldn't be the only part of your ad strategy. When it comes to the customer journey, you have to attract, catch, connect, convert, and then keep your customers. You don't generally go straight to convert. There are those 3 phases beforehand. You've got to find them. You've got to catch them. You've got to get them to your site. You've got to get them to know who you are. And then you have to connect with them. You have to make them want what you're selling. Now, we do use things like video view ads to build on those touch points. They're super cheap. Quite often you can get views for 1 or 2 cents. And just to get that brand awareness, that's what we used to call it back in the day, brand awareness, to get your product or your service or the thing that you're trying to promote, just to get one of those touch points or a couple of touch points inside of your consumer's brain space. Now, we know from experience these work. We know that they're cheap. We know that you can build audiences from them. And so we have been playing around with a bit of a hack on this. And that is to do a video views campaign with a call to action, so the little button that goes at the bottom of the ad. Sometimes we will run these ads with no button or just a link to, but we all know that one of the goals that we always have is to build our customer database. And customer database building can be very, very expensive. I remember back in the day, yes, I have been around Facebook ads for that long, when we call them leads, when we could get leads for less than $1. So to be able to get somebody's email address and to be able to market to them on your own platform, to do that for less than $1 that is just gold. Nowadays, we are usually pretty happy with anything under 10, depending on what niche it is in. But we recently did a database building strategy that got leads for this e-commerce brand, for a retail store with e-commerce, for less than $4 a lead. And that was pretty impressive. In fact, it worked out to be $3.46. And this is not completely optimized, but $3.46 to be able to have a conversation with your customer. That is pretty good. And we're going to get that number, I suspect, even lower. So you're probably wondering, how did we do it? Well, first up, it goes back to what I was just talking about, running these video view campaigns. So we decided to switch it up a little bit and do the video view campaign to messages. Yep, we structured the ad and the video that went with it to get customers to send a message with their queries or to book an appointment with one of the designers. And the thing is, most people aren't doing this. And so what's happening is we were getting in front of potential customers with the objective to watch the video. So the videos were really short. I think they were less than 15 seconds. But we had told Facebook we want people to watch the video. It didn't mean that Facebook was going to optimize for customers to send a message. But if you can get your message across in that 15 seconds, in fact, we actually worked out that the time that people were watching the video was about 8 seconds. So you kind of have to get your message across in the first, let's say, 5 seconds, and to convince your customer in those 5 seconds to take the action that you want. The bonus is we had kind of hacked the system because telling Facebook that we wanted our customers to watch the video meant we got these super cheap through play rates, around about 1 to 2 cents. And this is in a highly competitive industry. So super, super cheap and pretty impressive, if I have to say so. And so we ran the ads and the messages start to come in. The thing is, we didn't spend a lot. From memory, it was around $10 a day. And that meant, $300 for the month? And the messages started to come in. So we let that run for a while. And it was doing okay. The messages were costing around about $10. And that was, it was okay. Around about 1 to 2 messages a day to begin with. But we were aiming for 5 messages a day. That was the KPI that the client hadn't put a KPI in place, but the KPI that we had put in place for the campaign was 5 messages. And it was doing pretty well. We started running more and more campaigns with this ad strategy in place. Now, of course, going back to that pricing triangle, remember the last one that we talked about, the estimated action rate. After a couple of months, Facebook worked out that when we ran ads, we were pretty good at getting customers to send us messages. So we took the next step. And this is the thing about ads. Before I tell you what the next step is, the thing about ads is generally they can't be rushed. Okay, quite often I see people boosting posts, or they run the same ad over and over again, or they chop and change every second day because they're not getting the results. This was a long-term strategy. The good thing is it didn't cost an awful lot of money. We're talking $300 for the month, $10 a day, and the results just kept getting better. But they wouldn't have gotten better if we'd stopped that ad after the first 2 or 3 or even 2 or 3 days or even 2 or 3 weeks. What we were training Facebook, the Facebook algorithm, to see was we were really good at getting our customers to send us messages. And so then, of course, the next step is to create campaigns with the messaging objective. And sure enough, I'm sure you've already guessed it, within the first couple of days, we were getting between 3 and 6 messages a day, still at $10 a day. Now, you guys who are smart cookies are probably thinking, well, hold on, Sal, you told me this was a customer database building strategy. It's all good and well that you got somebody to message you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they opted in for marketing material. And we all know what happened with things like chatbots. Everybody got really annoyed with them. And so the way you can use something like a chatbot these days is very, very different. The thing is, this strategy wasn't run through a chatbot. It was run with real life people. The actual people who worked in the store answered the messages. And as I said, we're talking 3 to 6 messages a day. We're not talking huge amounts yet. And this strategy works because the products that are being sold are high end. They're often thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And so that customization, that personalization, that actual being able to speak to a human elevates the entire customer experience. If you're going to buy a $10,000 product, you want to make sure that there's a real live person on the other end of your message. So of course, to get this to work well, you really need to optimize the back end of the funnel. It means looking at that customer journey. What are the automated questions if somebody clicks on your ads? Do you have scripts for your team messages? Do you have some kind of ticketing system in place to monitor the messages? What is going to happen once you've had that initial conversation? And in this case, it was to get the customer's email address to send them more information. Now, you could change that strategy if you wanted to not be customer database building, but it works really, really well if you get the front end right, and then you optimize that back end of the funnel. What happens after they click? And so, as I said, if I can get an email address for a customer for $3.46, I'm feeling pretty good. But the fact is, we've just started that second part of the strategy this month. And so I can only expect that that number is going to go down. But the takeaway from that is we had to get Facebook to understand that we could get people to send us messages. Okay, so video views is one strategy. And you're probably thinking, well, if I'm not using video, I really need to be starting to use video. Because what works for one business does not necessarily work for another business. So we were having a great time with that message ad strategy. So, of course, feeling pretty proud of ourselves, we spoke with one of our other clients and decided to implement it into their business as well. The thing was, it didn't work. It completely tanked. And there were a couple of reasons for that. One, it was a completely different product with a completely different demographic of customers. Whereas the first product, the first e-commerce brand was targeting people of high net worth, this next product was targeting more the middle income earner. Now, whether it was the actual product that we were selling itself, whether it was this demographic didn't want to engage with somebody, they didn't want to take the time to message, they just wanted to be able to click and buy or just wanted to browse. There are lots of different reasons a campaign doesn't work. But again, there are two parts of the equation, the front end of the funnel and the back end of the funnel. So whilst the front end wasn't working that great, the back end wasn't working either. So the messages that were coming through, the team that were monitoring the messages, whilst they were answering questions, they weren't optimizing the conversation. So we pretty quickly worked out that this strategy, whilst it works for one company, it wasn't going to work for this other company. And this is why, guys, you have to be testing and measuring. And this is why you have to know that what works for one company may not work for you. It may not work for your customers. So scrap that strategy, start again. Because this brand wanted to build their customer database, we decided to run lead ads. So lead ads are where you get somebody to fill in a form with their name, email, and potentially phone number. Sometimes you can get them to answer some questions if you like. And then they go into your CRM, into your email program, something like Klaviyo, and then you continue the conversation after that. In e-commerce, it's generally an offer, a promo, some kind of discount, free shipping coupon that you put your details in, and then that gets emailed to you. You guys know that I'm not a huge fan of both free shipping and discounting to get customers in. So we had a completely different offer, again, with that more personalized touch to get somebody to actually have a conversation with you, but this time via email. And this one worked much better because the company was quite good with automation and they were quite good at putting the process in place and then sort of just stepping away and let it run. They don't have a really big team, and for them, the automated process was just much easier. And so once we found out that this worked, it was then a case of optimizing it. Now, I will say that using something like a lead ad is always more expensive. I'm yet to find a scenario where it is cheaper, that has been cheaper for us anyway, than the first strategy that we talked about. But it's a very different strategy because people are aware that they're giving you they're opting into some kind of email sequence. Whereas the other one was a more personalized conversation with the objective at the back end of the funnel to get the email address. In some cases it worked, in some cases it didn't. But this one was quite clearly you are being added to our database. And so what you tend to find is they become more expensive. So one of the things that we decided to try out was the call to action button. So same strategy in terms of at the beginning in that first strategy, we had the button going to the website, then we changed it to messages. For this campaign, we tried a few different buttons. One was book now, one was a learn more button, and one was call now. So we did change the primary text a little bit just to reflect the action that we wanted the customers to take. But we did find the learn more button worked best. And let me be very, very clear here. We mentioned in the primary text copy that they had to enter their details because there is nothing worse than clicking a learn more button thinking you're just going to go to a website and to get asked for your details. So we made it very, very clear that that was the call to action, regardless of the button that we wanted people to take. And that part of the strategy actually got worked out really, really quickly. We put all 3 buttons into an ad. We ran it at quite a high budget for, I think it was 3 or 4 days. We saw which button worked the best and which button got the most leads. And then we decided, okay, that's great. We're going to go with this button and optimize it some more. So of course, after the copy, the next part that you need to look at in your ad structure is the creatives. What is the picture or the image that you're using to stop the scroll? And in this case, we did a series of both static and video images. Now, of course, with our video views strategy doing so well, and with everybody talking about how fantastic videos are at stopping the scroll and getting people to take action, we thought that video was the way to go. But being experts, we have to test and measure. And here's what we found. The best performing ad was just a plain static ad. No fancy video. In fact, the image itself wasn't even fancy. It was a picture taken on an iPhone, no Insta-worthy type shot, but it was enough to stop the scroll. And my thoughts are that it looked like a picture that one of your friends would take on their phone. And so when people were scrolling, or people are scrolling, they stop because they're looking to see if that's something that their friends have posted. And this is why testing is so important, because in some industries, in some niches, that's just not going to work. In the premium industry, where the first strategy, the video view strategy worked, they don't necessarily want to see pictures taken on an iPhone. They want highly curated, perfect images. But for this niche, it was very, very different. And so just further to that strategy, what we did find, obviously when we did our testing, we put it in all the different places. We put all the placements out there. We found that Facebook and Instagram stories were more engaged and produced more impressions, and the leads that came through were significantly cheaper. So of course, if something is working and it's working well and it's working cheap, you want to scale it. And so we did. We duplicated the campaign and we started to scale the budget with a focus on Facebook and Instagram stories, and it completely tanked. Once more money got behind the ad and it got in front of more people, the fact was it just wasn't converting. But when we had it on CBO, or campaign budget optimization, the small amount of people who converted had converted quite cheaply. So it is easy to think that if we just put more money into it, we will drive that price down and we'll get more of the conversions that we're hoping for. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. So what I want you to take away from today's episode is, firstly, understand that pricing triangle when it comes to putting your ads in place. Now, that pricing triangle is going to work on any pay-per-click platform, but we work on Facebook and Instagram ads. That's our specialty. That's what we're talking about here today. So understand that pricing triangle is constantly changing. The second one is to test, and test a little bit more, because what you think might work doesn't always work in practice. And what's working for one of your competitors, even in the same niche, doesn't mean that it will work for you. It really is about understanding how to put the right offer in front of the right person at the right time. My next takeaway is don't always focus on conversions. If you can get somebody into your customer funnel, that is far more precious to you than just a one-off sale. So look at using different strategies to get people into your customer database. And lastly, when you're creating ads, you have to focus on stopping the scroll. When we talked about those video views, we found that the first 5 seconds were the most crucial, and it's the same with your copy, with your text that you put into an ad. When you're looking at the preview, you've generally got 1 to maybe 3 lines on a Facebook newsfeed. You have to deliver your message in that first line. If you're looking at Instagram stories, make sure you actually go and edit the text, because the way an ad shows up in stories is very, very different to the way it shows up in the news feed. And if all of this has just got your mind boggling, you know that Facebook and Instagram are the place that your customers are hanging out, and you want to expand your reach on those platforms, I am super excited to say that we currently have one place available for a retail or e-commerce brand if you're looking for somebody to implement and manage your ads on a regular basis. We're very transparent in the pricing. You can find more of that over at theretailstrategists.com. And if you just scroll down to Facebook marketing, all of the information will be in there. Or simply reach out on DM on Instagram and Facebook, and my team and I will be in contact with you to have a chat and see if we're the right fit. Head over to theretailstrategists.com, and I'll see you right back here again next week. Bye. running Facebook or Instagram ads or both, and it feels like they just aren't working like they used to. And the more of, say, your videos get watched, the more engaged your customers are, Facebook is going. Well, the fact is, they're not. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you what we've been trying out, what's working and what's not inside of our agency. Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm Selena Knight. I love today's episode. Going to reward you. It is going to get your ad out there to more people, and it's going to reduce your costs. So then the next part of the pricing triangle is the estimated action rate. So Facebook is trying to work out how likely a person... Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.